Welcome back to my channel, and today's video will be of particular interest to our generators and manifesting generators. And if you're a different type than that, I also encourage you to look at this, because you're going to have generators and manifesting generators in your life, because we are the majority. 70% of the population are some kind of generator. So even if you're a manifestor or a projector or a reflector, it's good to kind of know this stuff about generators, because you can support your friends in certain ways when you understand this kind of information. And our topic today is responding versus initiating. This is a question that I get a lot, and a lot of people continue to be confused about responding, which I get, because it's very different in certain ways than we've certainly been taught to engage with life. But in other ways, it's actually very, very natural to us and something that we do all the time. So we're going to dig into that today. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I just have to say, to those of you who are familiar with my videos, this is the dew that I have, which says it's over 100 degrees. And yesterday was 110 in Sebastopol, and so we're in the midst of this heat wave. So I've got my little ponytail today. Okay, done with that fashion statement. I thought it would be great to start with a little review for those of you who might be really new to human design. So you can see here in this slide that there are 5 different human design types. And there are generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. All of the different types have their strategies. Strategies are how we're designed to engage with life. How are we supposed to be here and operate? And then your authority is how you're designed to make the best decisions for you. In the case of generators and manifesting generators, the strategy and the authority really work together, and we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. This is an image of a defined sacral center. When you have this colored in on your chart, when it's red on your chart, that means you're some kind of a generator, either a pure generator like myself or a manifesting generator. The sacral is one of the 4 motors in the chart. It's the most powerful motor in the chart. It gives generators and manifesting generators our so-called Energizer Bunny energy, and it's responsive. Okay, it likes to respond. And this is why our strategy is to wait to respond. And it's also why our authority is our sacral authority. Now, if you're a manifesting generator, in addition to having that sacral defined, you also have one of the 4 motors connected to the throat. It could go through another center, or it could go directly to the throat. So here's an image of the 4 different motors. You'll see in this image that this is a generator, but it's not a manifesting generator, because the throat isn't defined and there's no motor going to the throat. But then in this slide, these are all the kind of different ways that you can get one of the motors to the throat. I went into a lot of detail about this in the video I did on life purpose for manifesting generators. So you can go here and check out that video if you want to, if you want to get more details about what it means to have one of the motors connected to the throat and how that influences your life purpose, and also just influences how you experience life as a manifesting generator. So your strategy, which is to wait to respond or just to respond, and your authority, which is your sacral authority, they, like I said, they work hand in hand. And this is more the case than for any other type, really. The question is, and this arises for people, is, okay, so my strategy is to respond. So what's the process for responding? Right? I did do a whole video recently on what it means to wait to respond, so you can go and check that out here if you want to. But what I want to focus on today is how that strategy to respond and your sacral authority work together. Now, a caveat for those of you who are emotional generators or emotional manifesting generators. What this means is that you have the emotional solar plexus colored in on your chart, and you can see here it's this brown triangle pointing inward into the chart. And it will say on your printout probably that you have emotional authority. Now, I'm not going to do a deep dive on this today. I did do a video on emotional authority, and it does talk about the situation for generators and manifesting generators. And so you can go and check that out here. I also mention it in the another videos I've done on sacral authority. So you can find out a bit more about that here. But just to say briefly, all generators have sacral authority. Okay. If you're also emotionally defined, what that means is that you want to pay attention to your emotional wave, because everyone who's emotionally defined has an emotional wave. And then you want to be asking your sacral during multiple points along your emotional wave. Okay. But you still want to rely on your sacral, because your sacral is way more reliable than your emotions are. Okay, because your sacral is your connection. It's your interface with your inner being, with the creative force of the universe that's expressing through you, right? And it has a much bigger perspective than this brain, as brilliant and amazing as it is very limited compared to spirit, right? Compared to that creative intelligence of the universe. So you want to be able to utilize that interface that you have, even if you're emotionally defined. Okay, so responding or initiating, how do you know? Well, let's unpack this a little bit. So the first thing I want to say is sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to know. What I did to try to understand this better for myself is as I went back through my life experience and I asked myself, okay, was I initiating or was I responding? Because in my mindset before I came into human design, I always thought I was initiating everything, right? I'm an Aries sun and we're always taught to initiate. So I have been initiating, right? So I named everything that I did as initiating because I didn't even know about response, right? And so I went back and looked through my life to see, well, was I actually responding or was I actually initiating? Now, there's a really clear example that I want to share with you. So when I was an undergraduate and I was completing my undergraduate work, I had 3 different professors, who all of whom had been my English professors, suggest to me that I go to graduate school. And I hadn't really been thinking about going to graduate school. My dad was a professor. My grandfather was a professor. I'm like, do that. No, that's just no. But I had these 3 people who knew me quite well at this point really say, you know, Maggie, I think that you would really enjoy this. You'd be good at it and you would get a job, which was a big deal at that time because there were not very many jobs. And so the idea that there would actually be a job for me on the other end was something that was appealing to me. So I took in what they said and I responded to what they said. And after I was like, okay, I'm going to really look into this. I'm going to check it out. Then I initiated the rest of the process. So that meant I did research about the different schools I could apply to. I did the applications. I went through that process, right? I wrote all the stuff up I needed to do. And then when I got the responses back and the offers that I got back, I went through and I responded to the offers and I decided which one I thought was going to be best for me. And I said yes. And then I went to graduate school. So in this case, I initially responded. So I entered into the entire process through response. And this is the thing that you want to really be doing is when you're entering into something, particularly something that's significant and important, and particularly if it's over a long period of time. So like for me, going to graduate school is not a small decision, right? I mean, I was in graduate school for 8 years. So it's not a small decision. So things like that, or whether to start a business or whether to start or to end a relationship, that kind of thing, you want to be able to do that through response. Now, the thing is once you get engaged in it, then you can initiate. You do not have to respond to every single little thing all the way along the way. That would be impractical. It would probably be virtually impossible to do. And so once you've entered into something powerfully through response, then you can initiate inside of it. Something similar for you projectors out there is once you've been invited into something, then you can initiate it inside of it. Okay. It doesn't mean that you have to be invited all the time for every single little thing that you do. You have to enter into it by being recognized and then being invited. At the time I was considering going to graduate school, I didn't know about my sacral authority. I didn't know about responding. But when I look back at it, I realized, oh, I entered into that through response, and then I initiated. But then there was responding going on all along the way. Like once I got the offers that came back, some of them were like, no, we don't want you. And then some of them were like, yes, we want you. And we're going to give you this scholarship, or we're going to give you this amount of money, or whatever it is. Right. And then I responded in that case. And then once I was in graduate school, I was responding all the time because I was in school. And so I was taking classes and I was given things to study, and then I was responding to that. Right. And then I was responding to the other people I was in graduate school with all the time. Now, looking back, even getting my job at Columbia, I realized I was responding because every year between Christmas and New Year's, there's something called the MLA convention. And the interviews for the jobs that are coming up in the following year all happen. The applications all happen in the fall. So this is like a system that's already going. And so I just responded to that system. Yes, I initiated by making applications to certain places, but I was also responding to their job announcement, right? And so sometimes it's hard to know, am I responding or am I initiating? And you want to get good at this. And so my suggestion is for you to really practice and then take it in stages. For most people, getting this piece about responding even more than the sacral, because some people that I talk to, they're like, oh yeah, I definitely trust my gut. Right? They already got that piece somewhere along the way, but they don't necessarily think of that in terms of response. And so we want to get how these two things really work together. Just like most things, you'll get better at this with practice. And when you're first learning this, or even if you've known it for a long time and you've tried, but you're confused and you feel like you haven't dialed it in yet, it's really good to do this with somebody else. Now, ideally, you're going to do it with somebody like me who knows how to ask the right kind of questions, but you can also do this, with your friends and your partner and whoever's around, right? Where you just ask each other these questions that are yes, no questions, right? Because the sacral only goes mm-hmm or mm-mm. It doesn't give an explanation. It doesn't tell you why. It doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't tell you, this is the next thing you should do. It just goes, oh, mm-hmm, or mm-mm. So you want to practice so that you can get really clear about that, because this is not your intuitive knowing. I did a reading with somebody recently who was telling me, oh yeah, I know my sacral because I have this sense of knowing. And I'm like, no, that's actually not your sacral. That's the knowing circuit. And so you want to be able to differentiate between the knowing circuit and other forms of intuition that you might have, because the truth is the chart is full of intuition. And your sacral, which is very specific, because the sacral is going to go mm-hmm or mm-mm. Like that's basically what it's going to do. Whereas if you just have an inner sense of knowing about something, that's going to be your knowing circuit. Or if you get a download, right? That's going to be coming in through your knowing circuit. Probably that could be coming in through your sensing circuit. You could also have a different kind of embodied experience that comes through your sensing circuit that gives you this kind of inner knowing. Again, it's not your sacral. Okay, your sacral is very specific, and it's really, really, really worth getting to know how it works and developing your relationship with it. Because so many people come to me for this, and I see it in my clients, I'm going to be setting up a sacral skills lab. Where you're going to be able to practice with each other. I'm going to run some sacral sessions with volunteers so you can see. And then I'll also set you up with other people and you can practice, and then I'll give you feedback and all of that. Okay. So that'll be in my community, which I'm just setting up right now. So don't have it ready, but stay tuned for that, because I think this is something that's going to really support you, is to get in touch with what that sacral is and how it works in your life. And here's the thing is, once you really get it, then you can ask yourself questions more, or you can also respond more to, like, if you get a download, you can respond to that download and not so much be looking for things in your outer reality. But until you're really masterful at this, I always encourage you to, if you do get an internal sense, an idea or a download of something to engage in, always check with your sacral for one thing and say, okay, is this for me? Is this for me now? Right? But also check out to make sure something's showing up, whether that's a conversation or actually, Check out to make sure that something else is showing up that you can respond to that's in your outer reality. Okay, now let's dig into this a little bit more, because I think a lot of times people are like, well, what am I waiting for to respond to? Here's the thing. You, all of us, every single type actually, respond all the time. You just may not be aware of it or be thinking of it as that. So let me just give you some really mundane, everyday examples that in today's world, most of us have. So you respond to email that you receive. Okay. You respond either by sending a reply or by reading the subject line and not opening it up and not reading it, or by opening it up and going, and going on, or by not even looking at it. Those are all responses, right? So same thing with posts on social media, right? You know, you can be scrolling through and you are actually responding in the sense of like, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, I'm not interested. Oh, actually, that's really interesting. I'm going to go and, pay more attention to that. You do the same thing with videos on YouTube. It's like you start a video, it comes across your feed and you click on it. And, the thing is that there's a huge percentage of people on my videos, and I think on most people's videos, that don't get past the first, 30 seconds of a video. Right? And so this is a way that people are responding. They're like, oh, okay, the thumbnail was interesting enough. The title was interesting enough. I'm going to respond to that by clicking on it. Then I'm going to listen to this person or watch whatever that is that's being offered. And I'm going to respond by either staying and continuing to watch it, or I'm not. And I'm going to click away, right? Those are all responses. So those are things that are happening in your outer reality. But then there's like conversations when you're talking with friends or talking with coworkers or being in a meeting and there's conversations going on, or you're talking with clients, or you're doing discovery sessions with potential new clients. All of that are things that you get to respond to. Each person is responding to each other. And you get to see, right? Is somebody actually listening and responding to something that you said? Are you actually listening and responding to what somebody said? Or are you just trying to get your piece in edgewise and you're not actually really responding to what they said because you didn't even really hear what they said, or you feel that happened with the other person, right? So this is all ways that we are responding. Now, the thing is a lot of this is habitual. Right? It's kind of programmed in. So like with the email, right? There's certain emails you probably habitually ignore, right? You may not unsubscribe from that list, but you habitually ignore. And this happens all the time with advertising. This is a great example, right? Where we are very programmed to ignore advertising a lot of the time. And if you just think about, like I went on Facebook to kind of test this for myself, right? And I'm going through and I'm looking through my feed and I'm like, yeah, boring ad, nothing, has nothing to do with me. And then something pops out that actually interests me. It feels like it's for me. Either the messaging addresses a topic that matters to me, it addresses a challenge that I have or something that I'm aspiring to. And all of a sudden it kind of pops out from this stream of things, many of which are not of interest to me. And then I go, oh, let me pay more attention. Now, the fact that I was ignoring things was also a response, right? I wasn't necessarily asking my sacral, but I was kind of going, okay, that's not of interest. But then here's something, and I get a body feeling like, oh, that's of interest to me. And here's the thing, is that all messaging, marketing messaging, is designed to have that happen. It's designed for it to pop out from all of the noise that's going on so that you go, oh, I'm going to pay attention to what that's about. Right? So the next time you're on social media, pay attention to how you're responding to, both what's on offer, whether that's a post, somebody's giving their opinion about something, or somebody's offering a video or photos, or whether it's an advertisement, and how you might be habituated to ignoring a lot of things. And then when things pop out, and you want to also kind of question sometimes if you're always ignoring certain things, because you may ignore some things that are actually important to you because you're not taking the time to really go, oh, what is my response to that? And ask your sacral. So this is a really low risk way you can start to play around with your sacral. So let's say you get a an ad that pops out to you. Again, this is my research today, going on Facebook, and I was looking for an ad. And I found one that kind of popped out to me. So this was about skincare. So I'm a woman over 50, so I'm interested in skincare. And it was talking about how collagen does not work to help with your skin. And it had a new topical treatment of colostrum, which is interesting because colostrum is the thing that that mammals exude before they put out milk. After they've had a baby, they put out colostrum, and so it's highly nutritious. Okay, and so this was in a topical thing, right, that I would put on my face for my wrinkles, right, and I kind of went, interesting. And it caught my attention enough for me to pay a little bit more attention to it. But then when I really tuned in, I was kind of like, like my sacral was a right? I don't know exactly why. Part of it, I think it's weird to take colostrum from cows and, give it to human beings because that's supposed to go to their babies. I mean, that's probably part of it. But I also was just like, yeah, it's not for me. Right. And so I got an instant kind of sacral decision from that, and then I could just move on. So this is a place where you could practice responding. Like even if, a video comes across your feed on YouTube and you could be like, oh, and just pause for a moment and notice how you feel and ask your sacral, should I watch this? Right. Or, okay, next. Right. So it's great to practice in really kind of low risk situations. So practice. Like so many things makes things easy, right? Once you get it, it's easy. It's not, mysterious anymore. Like for me, connecting with my sacral is no longer mysterious. And that can totally happen for you too when you practice. And the thing is even if you feel like you have this inner knowing that I was talking about before, some other form of intuition, working with your sacral is really great because it will help protect you from being unclear as to whether it's intuition or it's a programmed response. Okay. And so your sacral will cut through that and give you something that is more reliable when you get in touch with it. The other thing that happens, which is very interesting, is that once you really get in touch with your sacral, it'll even respond to you when you don't ask it. Okay, because it becomes just such an important partner for you in terms of how you're engaging with your life. So I want to give you another example of this from my own life about how this worked. So years ago, when I had decided to take human design seriously, I was responding to things in my life and I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. And I wanted to try responding. And so I was practicing responding, and I was also doing some research because I'm at the Gate 48 and I like to do research. And so I was researching and I was looking at some programs that Ra did, some audios from Ra, and looking at things from Jovian Archive. And then I came across Karen Curry Parker, who became my mentor. And I was not my sacral was not particularly happy responding to a lot of things that Ra was saying. Like I thought the system was amazing, but Ra's a little curmudgeonly, and I was kind of like, it's not like the response was not a yes. Let me put it that way. And then I came across Karen. I started getting her emails, and I had this. I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm responding to this. Like I could feel it. I felt a compatibility between the way that Karen was both presenting human design, but also between the way that we engage with life and the way that we think about life. Like she has a coaching background, she's much more metaphysical. All of those things really spoke to me. So I decided at that point, I was getting up about Karen. So I decided to do her professional training program. So I invested in the professional training program, and then I got, of course, to respond a lot because there was all kinds of things that I was learning. And then at some point, I started to do readings for friends because that was part of the training. And I was wondering, I wonder when I'm going to start my business. I mean, I wonder when it's going to be time for me to do that, right? And I did not have an internal yes, and so I was like, okay, well, I don't know. I wonder. I was asking generative questions even before I knew what generative questions were. And I just figured, well, it'll be obvious at some point. whenever it is. And so I was still doing readings because Karen was encouraging us to do that as part of our training, right? Was to do kind of what I would consider elementary readings. And they were fun, and I was getting a lot out of them. And then while I was doing I had done the recorded level 3, and then I was doing a live level 3, which was really fun. And I was coming to the end of that. And then Karen put out an invitation to her advanced students to do a quantum alignment show. And my sacral was a big yes. It was like, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I could totally feel it come in. It was like, I didn't even really have to ask. It was just like this full body, that's what you've been waiting for, right? And I was like, okay, now, so this is when I should start. And I was like, okay. And it's actually when I started my business. And so, yes, I was waiting to respond to the right thing to come along, and that was the right thing. So that was an example of when I was waiting to respond, and I was waiting for the right thing because it was a big decision. Like, when to start a business is a big decision. Like, you want to do it, you want to enter into it, if you're a generator or manifesting generator, through response. So I was responding to the invitation, and my sacral was a really big yes. So for you, when you're considering especially bigger decisions, you want to be in this place where you're curious, you may be doing research, you may be in conversation with people, and you're kind of wondering when it's going to be the right time, if it's the right thing, what's it going to look like, which is like if you're looking at different programs to study, or for example, like when is going to be the right thing that's going to come along, and your sacral can kind of come in and go, if you're in that state of wonder, right, which is where you're kind of putting it out to the flow of life, this is what you're interested in. And your sacral can just like pop right in there. And when I look back, just to circle back to this piece that I mentioned before, when I look back earlier in my life, long before I came to human design, my sacral was talking to me then. Because there were times where I felt an inner direction that was so strong, I could not deny it. And I know now that that was my sacral, right? And it was providing me with like this kind of push to go in certain directions or pull me back out of certain things. It was like, do not do that anymore. Like, no, And I was like, oh, okay, right? And so I want to affirm for you that your sacral has always been active inside of you. When I do readings with people, a lot of times I say things to them and they're like, I'm like, see, there's your sacral. And they're like, oh, that was it. So you want to check that out for yourself. Start noticing when somebody's talking and you're like, yeah, it's like, that's your sacral. So your sacral can become one of your very, very best friends. Definitely a partner that you want in your life. So my suggestion, again, is practice, practice, practice. Start with things that are really mundane. If you don't feel like you get good guidance from that because it's maybe not strong enough, then do it with bigger things, but maybe not start out with big, huge, like, should I get divorced or not? Like, maybe not start with that unless you're working with somebody like me who knows how to ask the right kind of questions. Okay. And then go ahead and join our Sacral Skills Lab when I get it set up. Okay. And you can come back and look in the description because I will put it in there when that's happening. Okay. So that's my report for today. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.